Let's walk and talk about The Walking Dead. Seems appropriate, right? So the premiere of Season 5 just happened last night. I did watch it. Now, this is not going to be a review per se. I'll be doing a review for What the Flick on the TYT network. This is going to be a combination, small review, and then a few things that I think the show needs to do to succeed in Season 5. So my initial basic impressions, I was impressed, and I'm happy, with what they did with the show so far. I'm excited more so for the season than I thought I would be at this point. The last season was okay. I think it was a little bit better than the seasons that had preceded it. The tension in this episode was very good, especially that first scene with the slitting of the throats. That's exactly the sort of thing that I want to see in Walking Dead. The enemy at Terminus, the sort of main villain there, was interesting, and sort of the somewhat unnecessary framing characterization they gave him in terms of the thens that they showed. That was interesting, and it did sort of flesh out the character. I don't know that it was really necessary. I was impressed with how quickly they got out of Terminus, and that storyline apparently is for the most part done. Maybe they'll be followed. But I do like that the show seems to be going somewhere. I don't know exactly where it's going at this point. I assume to DC, but there's some momentum, some dynamism, which is good, to start off a season with. Now, maybe this is just because it was a premiere, but I was impressed with the special effects and the level of brutality that they were willing to show of, people down on the ground being eaten by the zombies. There was a lot of gore, and it made me think that in recent seasons, really, how many people have you seen get eaten by zombies? It's really not that many. But now on to what Walking Dead needs to do to be the show that I think everyone who, at least early on, was a fan of it wants it to be. The number one thing is they need to limit the number of different groups that they discuss and follow on each episode, and within the groups they need to limit how many personalities they want us to care about. Now, I think a good comparison would be to make to the Game of Thrones. Now, Game of Thrones is a show that I think excellently balances a number of different character groups in settings, from around the world. But I don't think that that's what The Walking Dead needs to do. I think The Walking Dead has been best when, like at the latter end of last season, they would focus entire episodes on just one group. Like you had the Daryl episode, you had the Carol and the two girls episode. Those were great because they were very focused. And I think the reason that the sort of spread out multi-character sort of format, I guess, works for Game of Thrones is, maybe this is me being a dick, but Game of Thrones has the story and the world and the personalities and the characters to sort of make that work. I don't think that The Walking Dead, at least right now, does. None of the characters are as fully fleshed out or really as intriguing and interesting as in Game of Thrones, and so I don't want... Like if you're talking about the group that's got mullet head and they're trying to help him out, I don't want an episode about hot Hispanic woman. I don't want an episode about most badass ginger ever. Like that group should be a personality and then focus on that. But I think Walking Dead's weakest periods have been when it feels the need to sort of try to make everyone an interesting character when some of them just fundamentally aren't. Now, the second thing they need to do is they need to remember that the show takes place in a zombie apocalypse. I want the characters to be unsafe. And so far in the first episode, that was incredibly true. They were, at risk of death possibly by the cannibals. And then eventually there were zombies all over. So that was what I want to see. I want to see them being unsafe. Like... having like a 3 or 4 or 5 episode long arc of them in a prison debating different styles of leadership, look, that is a part of what a zombie apocalypse is about. These sorts of questions, a philosophical question of what does it take to survive in incredibly hard times. That is the fundamental question of a zombie apocalypse. And you can get to it from time to time, but I don't want every episode to be focused on that. So they need to make sure that the characters, and it looks like they'll do that now that they're headed to Washington, D.C., are unsafe. They're unsure of what's going to happen to them. That is what adds the action and suspense to a zombie apocalypse show like The Walking Dead that I think it needs to succeed. And then the final suggestion I'll make for what Walking Dead needs to do to succeed in Season 5 is they need to decide what the show is about. Now, a zombie apocalypse show like The Walking Dead from the beginning could have just been about, insecurity and trying to survive and trying to put back together your life and stuff. It could be about one town trying to sort of, get back on their feet or something. This is not that show, and I don't think that the writers can just have a long-running sort of interesting characters and interesting places sort of show. I think that they need an overarching plot at this point that's more interesting and more dynamic, and there's more to sort of attach yourself to as a fan than just, oh, the governor is bad, or oh, the head hipster cannibal is bad. No, I think that they potentially have it in the... Sorry, crossing traffic right now. Always a dangerous time on Walk and Talk. No, I think that they have it when it comes to the DC storyline and possibly having a cure for the disease. I don't trust Mullethead. I'm going to say that at this point. His talk about, well, I think if we use different vectors of attack, we can wipe out every single one. What vectors of attack? How are you going to distribute, you know, this disease for the diseased that's going to go all over the world? So anyway, I don't trust him, but that's what makes it interesting, is now I'm thinking about that. I'm talking about Mullethead in my videos. Give me more of that. Have them go towards DC with a possibility that either they could actually cure the disease, or they find out that it's a whole hoax. Either one of those would be interesting. It might seem odd that I'm making a Walk and Talk about a show that I continually criticize as much as I do, but I really do feel that The Walking Dead is 2014's Heroes. It's a show that has always felt like it should be amazing, it should be top tier, but the people who are running it just, they don't seem to have earned that position. I don't trust them necessarily. I think that the premiere episode was great. It was better than I thought it would be. That makes me have fairly high hopes. And so I will continually check in throughout this season from time to time to see if it's living up to the admittedly high expectations that I have for it. Until then, anyway, thank you for joining me on this little walk and talk. Nobody wants to walk alone. And I will leave you with a question as I head to the point to pick up a sandwich. What do you think The Walking Dead needs to do to be as good in Season 5 as it should have been in Seasons 1 through 4? Let me know what you think.